But I'm curious, why do you draw your women like that?
I draw them the way I see them.
But not all women look like that. Sexless, shapeless, overbearing.
I bet you look like that.
Barbara Hale moved through life with a calm, steady strength that never shouted for attention. She was born on April 18, 1922, in a small Illinois town, the daughter of Luther Ezra Hale, who worked as a landscape gardener, and Wilma McCulvin Hale, who managed the home. As a child, she went to Rockford High School and later moved to Chicago to study at the Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. Her early plans leaned toward becoming a commercial artist, but life had other ideas. While studying, her striking looks and natural poise began to attract attention from modeling agencies. Modeling offered a new path, one that taught her to stand comfortably in front of a camera and to carry herself with a quiet confidence. Talent scouts from major studios noticed her, and before long she accepted a chance to try her hand in Hollywood. Her first film work began in 1943, and over the next decade, she took a variety of roles that showed her range. She moved easily between genres, musicals, comedies, dramas, and westerns, and she held her own next to well-known stars of the era. In the mid-1940s, she appeared opposite Robert Mitchum in a western and continued to book steady work through the late 1940s. A suspense film released in 1949 gave her a higher profile, and in the early 1950s, she appeared in pictures with well-known actors, giving her experience in many kinds of storytelling. Those years built her reputation as a dependable performer who could bring subtlety and feeling to small moments on screen. Even though film became her main stage, Barbara also tried radio when the chance presented itself. Her radio credits were modest compared with some who worked constantly across mediums, but they mattered to her and to listeners. She took part in a 1947 episode of a program called Voice of the Army, which aimed to share soldier stories and keep morale high after World War II. A few years later, she performed on Lux Radio Theater, a prestigious program that adapted popular films and plays for radio audiences. She also appeared on programs that focused on moral and family themes, and those radio roles showed that she could communicate emotion with nothing but her voice. For listeners at home, her voice brought warmth and a sense of honesty. Barbara's personal life changed during the mid-1940s on the set of a western titled West of the Pecos. There she met Bill Williams, whose birth name was Herman August Wilhelm Kett. He had a background of athleticism, military service, and stage presence, and the two formed a bond while working together. They married on June 22, 1946, and their marriage would last for decades. Unlike many Hollywood partnerships that burned brightly and quickly faded, theirs endured through the pressures of show business. They raised 3 children and made an effort to shield their family life from the glare of publicity. That choice to keep a private home life felt deliberate and protective, and those close to them saw how much both partners cared for their children and for each other. The role that would most define Barbara's public life came in 1957 when she was cast as Della Street, the efficient and loyal secretary to the defense lawyer Perry Mason, played by Raymond Burr. Her portrayal was not decorative. Della Street was a professional in her own right, a woman with dignity, intelligence, and determination. Across the show's original run, which lasted into the mid-1960s, she appeared in hundreds of episodes, developing a rapport with Burr that viewers felt as a steady rhythm. Fans watched their professional partnership unfold episode after episode and came to admire the quiet trust between the two characters. Della was neither a caricature nor a shadow. She was essential to the work and to the sense of the show. Recognition followed. In 1959, Barbara received a major television award for Outstanding Supporting Actress, an honor that acknowledged not only her talent, but also the way she had helped shape a character who mattered in a changing cultural moment. Her performance suggested that women on television could be shown as able and respected professionals. Colleagues often talked about her work ethic. She came prepared, learned her lines, and treated the craft with respect. Directors appreciated that she could take direction and that she understood how a small, thoughtful choice in a scene could carry great emotional weight. The professional bond with Raymond Burr deepened into a close friendship off camera. They spent years working together, returning decades later to the same characters in a new format, television movies that allowed fans to reconnect with familiar faces. From the mid-1980s into the 1990s, they reprised their roles many times, and even as both actors aged, their performances felt rooted in a long history of mutual trust. The public often wondered about the nature of their relationship. Rumors and speculation sometimes swirled, as they do around many public figures, but those who worked with them saw something simpler and truer. Two professionals who respected each other and who shared a long friendship. In later years, however, she opened up in ways she had not before, offering a clearer picture of what Raymond had meant to her. In a reflective interview, she described him as more than a coworker. He was a protector and a loyal friend, a man who carried a heavy responsibility for the show, but who never failed to make those around him feel valued. Her words painted a portrait of a man who could command a room on screen and yet be gentle in private moments. She spoke about how, during long productions, he would make sure others had what they needed, how he would check in with a quiet word, or how he would offer a small kindness that made a hard day more bearable. When asked about the persistent tabloid talk that sometimes surrounded Raymond, Barbara answered in a steady voice. She reminded listeners that public figures are also private people, and that speculation does not change the daily realities of kindness and respect she had seen. Her defense of him was not an attempt to erase other truths or to silence questions. It was a plea for fairness and for remembering the human side of someone who had been publicly admired for years. She insisted that what she knew of him was a man who treated everyone, from lead actors to crew members, with a basic decency that mattered greatly when long hours and pressure could easily unsettle people. The loss of Raymond in the early 1990s affected her deeply. She spoke of grief as if a familiar pattern had been broken, as if a longtime companion had stepped out of view and left an empty space. The bond they shared over decades left her with memories that were both warm and sad, and she carried those recollections with a tenderness that came through in interviews. Her grief was private and sincere, reflecting the long years they had spent side by side in work and in friendship. In remembering him, she kept the focus on the small acts of kindness and on the steady companionship that had made their working life together feel like a partnership. Outside of her work with Raymond, Barbara's life was rooted in family and simple pleasures. Her marriage to Bill Williams lasted until his death, and she took pride in the family she helped raise. She managed to balance the demands of acting with the needs of her children, creating a home life that provided comfort and stability. Her son's later success in television and film served as a quiet continuation of her family's presence in entertainment, and she welcomed opportunities to share the screen with loved ones when those chances arose. For Barbara, personal life and professional life were two parts of a whole that she tried to keep healthy and distinct. Her later years brought health challenges. She developed a chronic lung condition that limited her activity and made daily life more difficult. On January 26, 2017, she passed away at her home in Sherman Oaks, California, at the age of 94. The official cause listed complications from a progressive respiratory illness. Fans and colleagues mourned the loss not just of a performer, but of a person who had given dignity and heart to a role that influenced generations. Her passing felt to many like the closing of a chapter from a time when television was building the kinds of characters that would be remembered for decades. Barbara Hale was the last surviving member of the original cast of the series that had made her famous, and that fact gave her death a particular weight for many viewers. To fans, it felt like the end of an era, a reminder that the shows they loved belonged to a particular time and place, and that those who made them were now part of history. Tributes poured in from across the industry, with colleagues recalling her professionalism, her warmth, and the calm way she carried herself. Viewers wrote about how her presence on screen had offered a model of quiet strength, and how her work had helped shape a new standard for how women could be portrayed in professional roles. Her acting style was never flashy. Audiences often noticed her for the small moments she created: an attentive look, a soft reply, a careful pause that made a line land. Directors praised her for being reliable on set. She knew how to take direction and how to let other actors take the spotlight when a scene required it. That humility was not weakness. Instead, it became a vital part of her craft. In an industry that often rewards big moves and quick fame, Barbara built a career on steadiness. She turned in performances that showed how restraint and precision can be as powerful as any showy gesture. Della Street, the character she made famous, mattered because she represented a working woman with competence and heart. On screen, Della organized complex legal matters, managed schedules, and offered quiet judgment. Off-screen, Barbara was not a caricature or a shortcut for empathy. She brought depth that made Della a trusted figure. Younger viewers who watched the show many years later note how unusual it was at the time to see a woman portrayed as a skilled professional without being defined only by relationships. That portrayal offered a small but meaningful shift in how female characters could be seen. The Emmy she won in 1959 marked a public recognition of what colleagues had long known. Awards are only one way to measure a career, but for Barbara, it acknowledged the quiet power of craft. She took the award without fanfare, more pleased that the work had been noticed than that she had received a trophy. That modesty landed with people. Fans remembered her more for the person behind the parts than for any celebrity trappings. For her family, the award was a small, proud moment among many others that mattered far more than any public accolade. Barbara's radio work echoes a particular moment in American entertainment history. Radio, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, still held a special place in the home. Families would gather to listen, and actors who could speak with warmth and clarity could touch listeners in their living rooms. Barbara's appearances on programs that emphasized moral themes and community values reinforced the image she carried on screen, a performer who seemed to stand for steadiness and decency. To many listeners, her voice felt like a safe presence on a shared evening. Her marriage to Bill Williams offered evidence that it was possible to make a family in Hollywood without constant scandal. They raised 3 children together and protected their private life with care. The couple worked in the same world, understood its pressures, and made an effort to keep the family grounded. Barbara prioritized simple routines, meals shared at home, holidays with relatives, and a sense of normalcy that shielded their children from some of the harsher glare of the public eye. Colleagues remembered how much she loved her family and how she balanced career and home with clear priorities. The later television movies offered Barbara a second act with a character she had grown into. Returning to the role of Della Street in the 1980s and 1990s, she and Raymond returned to familiar rhythms, and viewers found comfort in that continuity. Television audiences had changed since the original run, but the essential human qualities at the heart of their performances, loyalty, intelligence, and a sense of duty, felt timeless. The 2 actors showed how a partnership built over decades could move easily from one era of television to another while keeping its core strengths. People who knew her well often spoke of her laugh, quiet, warm, and genuine. On set, she could break the tension with a small joke or a knowing smile. Many younger actors who worked with her described her as a mentor, someone willing to offer a steadying hand or a piece of advice learned from decades in the business. She never lectured. Instead, she offered counsel in the form of practical tips and the kind of example that shapes a career. Be on time, learn your work, and treat others with respect. Her final years were marked by medical challenges that limited her public life. Friends visited, family surrounded her, and she maintained the dignity she had always shown. When she passed away at 94, The outpouring of memories showed how deeply she had touched viewers and colleagues. Obituaries and messages recounted her warmth, her steady professionalism, and her role in an iconic television series that had influenced many. Fans left flowers and notes, and actors remembered a colleague who had quietly shaped their understanding of how to behave on set and in life. Her choice to defend Raymond Burr in later interviews reflected not only loyalty, but also her belief in the importance of fairness. She emphasized that the version of a person seen on screen is only part of the story, and that private reputation and kindness matter. That perspective, quietly spoken in a world that often values scandal, earned her respect. People listened because she was not seeking to rewrite the past, but to offer what she had seen firsthand. A complex man who deserved compassionate remembrance. Looking at her life from a distance, it is clear that Barbara Hale's story is not simply about a career or a single role. It is about how a person can shape their life through steady choices. Choices to work carefully, to protect family privacy, to treat colleagues with respect, and to speak honestly about people they love. In the history of television, she stands as a reminder that power need not be loud to be real. Her Della Street remains a touchstone for viewers who want to see a woman handled with dignity and intelligence. Her influence survives in small details, the way a secretary's competence was shown as a strength rather than a plot device, the way a companion's loyalty was portrayed as partnership rather than subservience, and the way an actress could build a life that balanced public work with private care. Those lessons are modest, but they last. For the many who watched Perry Mason and later films, Barbara Hale will always represent a steady moral center and an enduring professional grace. When she finally chose to speak more openly about Raymond Burr, Barbara did not aim for headlines. She aimed for truth as she experienced it, simple, honest, and humane. Her words asked for empathy rather than judgment. And in that asking, she gave fans and friends a gift, a clearer picture of a friendship that had defined much of her life and helped shape a television legacy that continues to be watched, studied, and admired. Her memory endures in every quiet, truthful portrayal still.